Hello everybody, this is Gianluca with Modesto and this is my video number 12 on KiCad. So last time we were working on the PCB layout, but if you remember at the beginning when we defined the schematic and we basically pick a specific footprint for the switch, I decided to use a connector, but at this point I think it's time to change that, to go back and to put actually a switch there, which was the original idea. And I think that is interesting for you guys, so you can see how I can change a footprint of a component and actually use whatever I think fits better for my project. So what I did, I actually went to a Mouser. I looked for different components and I found this component that is exactly what I want. So it's a through-hole one pole switch. Is a 30 cents, so it's something like that. And I check also in 3D contents and I can see also that there is a step file that I can download for that component, which is also good for the rendering at the end. So I have the information here about the components I want to use. What is next step? So I have to go to my footprint editor, and the first operation I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new library. Of course, these are all pre-existing libraries, so I need to create my own library, and this library will be, I will give a name that is specific for my project, and I want this library actually to be inside my project, so I don't want to have this as a global library, but just related to this project, and here I can select that. Here we go, we have the library. If you see, it's an empty library. If you look to the other libraries, you see you have a different footprint, but in my library I don't have any footprint here. So next step will be to create a footprint. And so how we do that? So we have here a data sheet of my components that are already open, and you see that inside this data sheet you have all the information. So you see the two pins of the connector of the switch, and you see all the dimensions, and my switch is specifically the DTS3 because for this specific series you have different ones, and so it's a through hole. And if you see the design for the PCB, you see that you have two holes. Each hole is 1.3 millimeters. And the distance between the two holes is 6.5 millimeters. So with this information I have everything I need to start to design my footprint. So I can go to create a new footprint in my library that I just created. And I give the name of the components that I just copied from the datasheet. Okay, so as you can see then, I can create a pad. I go to edit the pad, and you see that here you have all the information you need to create a specific through-hole pad. If you remember, in the datasheet we have 1.3 millimeter for the hole. So I'm going to write this value. And then, of course, we need a little bit of margin to put our soldering paste. So at this point I created one pad, and remember that they are 6.5 millimeters. There are 6.5 millimeters between one hole and the other one. That means if I refer the center as a 0, 0, here we should put the position X at 3.25 millimeters. And now we have our first bed, and you see is a 3.5 millimeter from the center of this schematic. Then I can duplicate this bed, so, and I put this bed in the other side, so it will be more or less 3.25, but we have to verify is 3.1, so I have to put 3.25 here. And now the other thing I want to do, of course, is to change the identification number for the pin. We have one in both of the pads we defined, so we need to have this one with number 2. I defined some graphic just to give some idea about the dimension of the components. And so I go back to my data sheet, and here you can see that we have information like the length of the component, 6 millimeter, and then we can also find how wide is the component, so 3.5 millimeters. And so again, I'm going to print some silk on my footprint to indicate what more or less is the size of the component. So I select the silk, front silk. I select the tool that I need to actually draw a line. So I draw a line, then I edit the line to put the dimension that are correct for my application. Now I duplicate this line, and I copy the line on the bottom, and of course I have to give the right values, so we see that we have to adjust the y-axis, and so we have a definition of the size of the physical component. You can also add some other information. So I remember that the silk is something that will be printed on this circuit, but you can also add different layer like the F-fab or B-fab, which are information you provide to the fabric, to the manufacturer, but they are not going to be printed on the circuit. So we don't need to do that on this specific component. And at this point we can save the footprint we have created on our library. And then we are ready to use this footprint in our circuit. In order to do that, we go back to the PCB layout. We select the components, so the switch that we want to change. We edit the preferences, the parameters, and then we change from one specific footprint to the new one that we have just defined. So from this package to the new one. And as you can see, now our components has a new footprint. We can edit the parameters, and if we free the footprint, we can also start to rotate and move the components. So I can move the components in where I prefer in my PCB board. The rendering right now, as you can see, you have the footprint, but you don't have any components on it. So in the next video we are going to show how to add the components. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.